Welcome back to step 4 on how to make a budget. We're going to review the actuals, fill in the ideal, and talk about those buckets. So what I did was I made a template for you all. By now you should have put those numbers that you spent for December into them. It's out there on the Google Drive. The link to the template will be in the description. Now that you've done that, we're going to take a review of what it is. So first thing you want to do is just take a look at the actual money you have left right here at towards the bottom. And what we have here on this one is positive. Life is good. You didn't go over budget. If you were negative, then we have some work to do. And you can see that here on budget sample 2. So I had a couple of templates made out here for me just to show you what a budget can look like. As we see here, the pay was 3,200, spent 5,212, and we are left with negative $2,012.02. We're gonna go 2 cents. We're gonna round up. Overall, we're gonna try to look for and identify what you actually spent money on, what you need to do to save throughout the year by using those bucket categories, and what could be cut back on. What we're gonna do is review your spending and update the ideal and target section. So first, what we wanna do is take a look at the monthly bill section. And what you're going to see here, I know for the most part, you're not going to have anything in your ideal section. I'm just doing this to show you what it could look like. And what I did here was we know that the monthly bills is something that you will always have to pay for. So, and that shouldn't have a lot of variability, right? Like where you live, rent, mortgage, wherever it is, your trash, your water, your sewer, all that stuff, it's all normally going to remain the same. So to fill out this ideal section for the mortgage, rent, living conditions, insurance, it's pretty easy. And what we're going to do here, as you can see, the actual spend was $900. So what I'm going to do is scroll all the way back up. Like I said, these things have references. You see this, it's equal B9. So what we want to do is go all the way back up here and type in 900. And once you do that, it'll change throughout the whole spreadsheet. So this is the section that you're going to want to fill in this ideal section. Also keep in mind, the template's going to look different from what you're seeing here on the screen, just because this is one of the ones I use personally versus like that template where I gave you all the extra buckets. So you're going to delete the sections that you don't need and all that good stuff. So right here we have 900. For insurance, auto insurance, it's 1,200 per month that I have. So really 1,200, not 1,200 per month, 1,200 per year. So 1,200 divided by 12 is 100. So ideally every month I'm spending 100. It's not really ideally, it's going to be pretty much exact. The only time that is going to change is rate increases. We all know we get hit with rate increases. Rent eventually goes up after your contract expires. With mortgages and all that, there are taxes that come along with it. So your escrow is going to go up, or overall, if you own your home, you're just going to have more taxes because we all know government's going to take the money that they need and they're going to do it through actual taxes, whether it's school or local, whatever it is. They're going to take that money, so that's going to increase. What you're going to do then is once that actually happens, you're just going to go from that point on that month and just change the number. I mean, you could always build it in like inflation wise to have that come in there, like 6% or something, 7% as we're starting to see. But you could go and do that. For me, I don't change it until the time actually comes. We know with car insurance too, there's always rate increases, so you can do that. Even cable TV. I'm so happy that I don't have to pay for cable TV. Um, you're gonna just go through this whole monthly bill and then just fill it out in the ideal section until you get to a point where there's variation. For me, that variation is the gas and electric bill. So over here, you can see my actual, I put it at 60 and 57. Over here on the ideal is 60 and 130. The reason I do this is because I have really hot summers and really cold winters. So the AC's running, the heater is running. And what I look to do is try to find the worst case scenario. What I did here is not going to work for everybody. With some people with tighter budgets, or like you're not as financially stable, you're not going to want to do this. What I do is I leave my gas at 60 throughout the entire year. I use roughly $30 every month when it's non-seasonal, not crazy winter cold weather. With the electric, it's not 130 year round. It is roughly, let's say, $60 every month, going through the whole way. And then once it gets to summertime, the AC cranking, so I have it at 130. So I leave it like that. Any excess from that actual uh, budgeting, it goes into the anything and then gets spent on, like bills or debt or anything like that, mortgage, something like that. But I overshoot on purpose. You could be telling me, well, then you're going to have all this excess money. At the same time, I'm okay with that. I rather not get to the point because I know growing up, we weren't well to do at all, right? Like there were times where we didn't turn on the air conditioner when it was really hot. And there was times we didn't turn on the heater when it was really cold, right? You could put more clothes on. You have a blanket. You have multiple blankets. So that's why like I don't want to get to the point in my life right now where I want to just have that happen again. I want the ability that if I'm cold, like actually cold, I'm gonna turn on the heater and not have to think about or worry about it. Again, we're all in different places in our life. If you have to, like budget more towards monthly, then what you're gonna want to do is just go back to, your old bills and do it seasonally. So when it comes to, not like say August equals August from last year, like this year's August is going to be like last year's. We know that's not the case. Sometimes you're going to have a kind of mild August. Sometimes it's going to be a crazy hot August. So what you're going to do is budget it by the season. So in this case, if I were to do this again, I could put like June, July and August is my ideal at 130, and then when it gets to September, crank it down to like let's say 100 just in case it's a really hot September. Who knows? But that's where the variation can come into. The other variation that I have here would be my medical. Because right, like if you look at all this other stuff, they should all be about the same. The medical is going to be different. And what I do with medical is I look back at, like the eye doctor visits, the dental visits, the medical normal checkups, and if there's any sort of emergency, I kind of build that in there too. So I mark that me personally as $300. You can also say that this medical could be a bucket. I don't have it as a bucket, but you could easily say you can have a medical bucket. But for me in my life, I have an HSA. That HSA is funded for like 3 years. I can hit my deductible in max 3 times and I'm good. So for me, this medical bucket is more like, like the normal stuff that you run into with the dental, eye, and all that good stuff, and then just a little bit built in for some sort of emergency. If I have to dip into the HSA, I definitely will. I try to avoid using that. I want to use that for emergencies or as I get older. And at the same time, my HSA is funded to the point where I can invest in actual different investments, which is what I'm doing to help hopefully grow that up. And lastly, we have the slush fund again. Again, that's something that me and my wife decided on that we pay ourselves. And and not everybody's going to do this, which is fine, but this is one of those ones you can easily eliminate. Now that we've been through that, we're going to talk about our discretionary because discretionary is the part of your budget that if you are negative, this is going to be a way to hopefully bring you back into the positive because we need to figure out what was going on here that ended up killing your budget. I mean, if you're as lean as possible on your discretionary, that pretty much leaves you with like where you live and all that. That means maybe you get a roommate, maybe you move back in with your parents. And honestly, that's not an ego thing. I know with over in Asia, we have no problems with that. Like we don't have any issues with that. It's like a cultural thing. For us, that's okay. For over here in the United States, it's a little bit different culturally, but you may have to come down to that if you basically can't trim anything out of here. So what we're going to do with the actuals is just take a look at it. This is the time where you actually have to look at it. The things you want to keep in mind is when you take a look at what you actually spent, is there anything shockingly higher than what you have guessed? For myself, coming in here from a, um, let's say, card, investing in cards, coins, stocks, and all that stuff, I can just be like, okay, maybe I spent a little too much on here. What I did was I highlighted some examples. So we have entertainment and we have Christmas as 1094, entertainment 1096. The 1094 is actually real. That number right there for Christmas, that was actually what was spent collectively between myself and my wife on like family, relatives, friends. Like when when I think about gifts to just my exclusive friends that my wife doesn't know, that's not included in these numbers. This specifically is, household budget, which would then reflect 10, 94, 49. Entertainment, what I did here with entertainment was, I just doctored a number in there. I didn't write all of these numbers out. As you can see, this is October 31st, which it wouldn't be right. This is the example for December. So I just wrote diner down here at 1,000. I feel like that would be more like a bar situation. I don't know if anybody would spend $1,000 at the bar. I know I never have done that. But in case you had like a crazy December where you're just like, I'm going to spend a ton of money, I'm going to buy a bunch of rounds, I have no idea. But that could happen. So these are one of those ones where if you just look at this, and I had, like a $2,000 budget, and I blew this budget right here in just these two spots. Like, this is a lot. What we're going to do here then is take a look and see how you can cut back, what you want to do. This is one of those things where I've told you before, like, if you notice this, then you're going to be like, okay, what am I going to do in the future? So now that you have your actuals, we're going to just take these actuals and move them up into the ideal, or at least guesstimate. Like you can see with gas for me, when it comes to me and gas, I literally have not spent anything. I'm a work from home guy now. I haven't gone anywhere. I think last year I got 1,200 miles on my car. It was basically me turning on my car, driving around for a while just to make sure it still works, and then turning it off. But what that's so you're going to have to just put a little bit of reality in here. I know, like right now, I spent none this month, but I'm going to spend it next month. So maybe I throw $40 per month or something like that. And it's same thing again. You're going to come back all the way up here, and in your variable spending, you're going to just fill this out. The nice part about this is once you do your ideal monthly, what will happen is you're going to see how much is left, right? So up here we had how much your monthly pay was, how much is left after paying your bills, and then you can disperse all the money in different places. I actually like that. I like that word disperse. It's actually pretty fun that you can just divide it out over what you have left. And what this is you're going to just make sure that you do this realistically. You're not going to just say, right now is, let's say you spend $400 on food every month. You're not going to say, okay, I'm just going to make my food $250. It is what it is. $400 is what you spend on food, and people need to eat. As you go throughout your budget and your actual month, what you can do is get into the habit of thinking, okay, I want to cut back on how much I spend. I spend $400 on food. So when I go to the grocery stores, am I buying stuff that really isn't food? And what I mean by that is I like potato chips. If you look over there, which I'm not going to show, but over there in that corner is where all my snack foods are. We know snack foods is not really great food for your body, but at the same time, it's not really as cost effective. You're putting something into your body that's not good, and at the same time costs you money. So when you're out at the store, are you buying these chips? Are you buying candies? Stuff that you really don't need that is just kind of nice for you. So when I say when you're making this budget, if you spend 400 now, just put 400. If you go through the month and you're able, let's say the next 2 months, 3 months, something like that, and you're able to keep your food costs down to 300, then in the future you would want to make that $300. That makes sense. A budget is something that you try to ideally get to, and that's why I say like it's like a diet in a sense. Like you want to get to that point where you're pushing yourself into an actual dollar amount, but not at the same time like just making it up to and failing to hit your budget every month, right? If you're consistently spending $400 and you put your ideal as $300, then you're just really lying to yourself about where you want to go, like what you're going to be. So you need to cut back somewhere else. If you can't get the food budget down, you need to cut somewhere else. So like maybe you have haircuts and you spend $100 on haircuts, but really you can get maybe a decent haircut for $50. I'm not saying cut your hair and like having your hair look bad in the sake of saving your budget, because some people, need to have a certain look. At the same time, like maybe you're spending too much on haircuts, maybe you're spending too much on clothes, or you can cut back on the cable TV, like, cut the cord all together, pick up, a streaming service, share it between two different people, and that way you're set. Kind of like what my family does, right? Like I have the Prime, Amazon Prime, my brother has Netflix, my sister has Hulu. We share all those three together until one day that the streaming services won't let you actually share them. But for now, that is what we're going to do. With the food budget, there's always those places you could go, a discount store. You can actually cut coupons. That still exists. I mean, it's pretty amazing. My sister does the extreme couponing thing. It is nuts watching, $120 bill go all the way down to $3. It's insane watching that. It's pretty amazing actually. So what you want to do then is why I point out Christmas here. Christmas is one of the better ones to point out. And again, this is the time of year you're going to spend this money. You're going to go out like to that bar, spend the grand. You're going to spend tons of money on Christmas presents. What I do, and this is why the buckets exist on my actual uh, budget here, is the fact that the 1094.49, it's a lot for 1 month. What you want to do is pay that out during the year. So with 1094.49, what that actually mass out to be is $91.21. You can see I budgeted 83.34. The reason is like there was babies and all this stuff that it went up. We got a little more excited to spend on Christmas, so we spent a little bit more this year. So what I want to do then is, starting with January, is I want to change this ideal from the 83.34 that it was before to 91.21. And I'm just going to do it just to show you. So up here in Christmas, we're going to put 91.21. There we go. And just go back down just to show you that it updates right here. That will change for the future, and that makes sense because now when Christmas comes around, I can easily spend that 1094.49. You could jack it up to 1100, 1200. If you think there's going to be, if you see someone pregnant and they're in your family, then maybe you want to increase it for the next year. That way you already have that ahead of time. The overflow, because I did not budget $91, I only budgeted 83. That went into the anything budget, which handled, like the anything bucket or pool of money that was left over throughout the month, and that was easily taken care of. So you could see where I over budgeted on the electric and gas. When I didn't actually spend it, it ends up here in the anything, anything left out of my budget. Let me just show you budget one. There you go, then that makes sense. Okay, budget one. That way, I've always had a play, even though I overshoot on some, and maybe I undershot on that Christmas this year, we have different places where I'm not spending all that much money in it, and it goes in there. Okay, so what I need you to do then is you're just going to have to do this exercise. Just honestly look at what you spent and fill out the ideal. And once you fill that out, you're going to be able to see a picture of what your budget looks like and what it can handle in the future and what you could spend or what you have extra, which would be really awesome because you don't want just a whole lot of extra sitting there. Like if you have $300 sitting there, 500, $1,000, once you get up to the $1,000, you need to really figure out what you're going to do with it, because once you have that $1,000 sitting there, you have a pool of money that just sits there and your mind starts wandering. Some people do anyways, on like, oh, I got $1,000 extra, when am I going to spend it on? Really, you should be saving it. You should be building an emergency fund. You should be paying down debt. You can do something fun with it, as a treat yourself for making a budget and sticking to it. But overall, you don't want to just have money just floating out there doing nothing. And this will help show you what you need to actually budget for, right? So you have all this stuff. You can put more into a vacation fund. You can have a cell phone fund. You can have, a new computer, because people are spending more on, people are getting computers now that they're work from home. And at the same time, you want a better one. With crypto happening and mining happening, graphic cards are pretty expensive. So you actually do really need to budget out for computers, especially if you want like a gaming computer or something like that. So just if you need to add more buckets, all that, but just make sure you spread out your money over all the different categories. You can leave some money left over. I'm not saying that having $300 extra is a bad thing, but once you start breaking into the thousands, maybe you start figuring out what you want to do with this. This is a good time to actually figure this all out because it's January, beginning of the year. You'll have a budget that work for you, and you can, with your budget, just so you know, this isn't like a one-time thing. You're going to revisit it over and over again. You should be at the end of the month just taking a look at your actuals. Does it kind of reflect what you wrote down for ideal? If it doesn't, then you start adjusting it for the next month and all of that good stuff. If you need any help on any of this, filling out this sheet, you can't get your budget into the positive. You can't figure out what to do with your budget if you are positive on your budget, then let me know. I have my email address in the description. Feel free to just write me. I am okay with talking to anybody. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just the guy that loves making budgets, helping people out, making sure that you reach your financial goals. I think it's an awesome thing when you can retire early. So with that, have fun, be happy, and don't spend anything outside of your budget. Have a good day, everybody.